There are stories that live in the shadows, whispers from beyond, encounters we cannot explain. This is Beyond the Veil, where the unknown is never far away.
Hello everybody, welcome back and thank you for joining us once again, Beyond the Veil. I'm Brett Rogers, and as always, I'm joined by Lee Yule Logwise.
Ah, nice. Good evening.
And we are here bringing you a very
Just because I've just been to toilet.
yeah. So that it was unrelated. It's actually more related. The fact that this is our Christmas special edition episode of Beyond the Veil. So we were talking about our episode schedule coming up, and we were talking about how we wanted to sort of deliver a Christmas sort of message in one of the episodes, and then we got talking about maybe doing a Christmas special, didn't we? And
Yep.
That's why we're here. So, and we primarily got talking about that because Christmas is sort of quite, well, although it's filled with frivolity, people being jolly, bright lights, etc. It's also been a time of the year people enjoy sharing ghost stories.
That's
So, do you know like any off the top of your head particular
a
festive?
Christmas Carol.
Well,
It's one of my personal favourite books.
It is. It's a great book as well, though. And I think this is the thing. A lot of people have obviously seen a version of the film and the story, but I think a few people have actually read the book, and it's a great book.
Yeah. The things I know about Christmas and hauntings have come from. There's an awful lot of fiction, awful lot of horror stories, ghost stories mainly, set around Christmas. In my days of reading point horror books, there was specific point horror Christmas
Nice.
stories, and then the other bits of folklore. Some of which is quite sweet, some of it which is a bit eerie. So, as you know, I've been to Iceland before, and they have the Icelandic Yule lads, which are these like weird little goblins that come on the 12 days of Christmas and leave different things. But some of them are quite odd. Sausage stealer, etc. Not sure about sheep botherer even.
That sounds like a lady of the night.
So yeah, they're a bit weird. Like I say, some ways it's pretty sweet. In some ways, it's a bit strange.
Yeah.
But I think it all boils down to places that are cold in winter and around Christmas. A traditional form of entertainment would have been sitting around the fire telling tales.
100%.
Like, you know, where a lot of folklore comes from,
Yeah.
and where our idea for the podcast came from.
Quite right. And yeah, actually, there's some things you've touched on there which are actually part of this episode, which we will be touching on very, very shortly. So, with that being said, are you ready to begin?
Indeed.
Winter has always belonged to the ghosts and the spirits. Long before Christmas lights, long before carols, these were the nights when the dead wandered and the living stayed close to the fire. Tonight we return to that older tradition, a Christmas of shadows and things that watch from beyond the veil. Our first story, The Phantom Choir of York Minster. Christmas Eve, a cathedral older than memory, colder than the winter air outside, and silent, save for the whisper of a single watchman's footsteps echoing beneath ancient stone. But as midnight approached, something stirred in the darkness above, a sound no living soul should have been able to make that night. Not in this empty cathedral, not after all these years. On a freezing Christmas Eve in the late 19th century, a night watchman at York Minster was making his rounds through the dimly lit nave. The cathedral was silent, save for the echo of his own footsteps and the distant wind pushing against the stained glass windows. But at midnight, he passed beneath the great organ. He heard something that chilled him to the bone. A choir of young boys singing. The hymn was soft, layered, and impossibly beautiful, yet every voice carried an undertone of sorrow. The watchman, believing he was hearing trespassers, climbed the stairs to the choir loft. What he found froze him in place. The loft was empty, but the singing continued, all around him. The voices swelled until they filled the cathedral, and then abruptly stopped. Later that night, after the watchman told a priest what he'd experienced, he was told a grim truth. On Christmas Eve, centuries earlier, a devastating fire had swept through the Minster's choir school, killing a number of young choiristers there, trapped inside. Since then, many had claimed to hear the midnight choir returning there every Christmas Eve to finish the hymn they never got to complete in life. Even now, visitors claim the Minster hums with the voices of children long gone, a hymn unfinished, returned to the world only when Christmas Eve opens the space between past and present. Whether it's memory, imagination, or something else entirely, the midnight choir seems determined to sing on.
Very interesting.
It's a cool story, isn't it?
Yeah.
So,
And it feels Christmassy.
doesn't it? Yeah. You can really sort of like picture it, can't you?
Yeah.
This idea of, snow being all around, and you can
When
just
was
hear...
that report from?
Well, actually, so...
I mean, having a night watchman suggests it's quite old.
Yeah. Well, actually, the story does seem to be, which I'll cover very, very shortly. The story does seem to be nothing more than a story, and it's been sort of like picked apart from different reports, which are also then unsubstantiated reports, and it's sort of like being built together into this story, which I'm not entirely sure has any real evidence to back it up. So it does just seem like a story. But either way, so of course York Minster is a real place and has suffered major fires in the 18th, 19th and 20th centuries, the years being 1753, 1829, 1840 and in 1984. Perhaps most notably is the deliberate 1829 arson by Jonathan Martin and a large 1840 fire. These fires destroyed the choir, organ, stalls, and these events were very well documented.
Destroyed the choir?
Yeah.
What, they died in the fire?
No, I think it means... Sorry, from like the research that I've got here, I think it means like, where the choir would sit.
It's very
Destroyed.
cold way to say.
Destroyed the choir. Sorry, yeah. I think what I've meant to put there is that where the choir would sit when the organ and everything, that is what would they be, like pews or something like that?
I suppose so.
But yeah, all that area was just completely destroyed. As we discussed in our last episode with Mike, York and York Minster, they figure heavily in local ghost lore, and many local guides, paranormal sites, and tour operators list phantom clergy, choir boys, and other apparitions connected with the Minster and its sort of precincts within the area. These stories circulate in tour scripts, local folklore blogs, and paranormal databases, and they do form a long-running oral tradition within the city. But in relation to this story, I think that is all it is. I think it's oral recounts of a ghost story, and it is just fiction. I could not find a primary archival source, whether that be in any kind of 19th century newspaper reports, which are easily accessible. I mean, maybe a deeper dive into those kind of archival things might have found something, but there's nothing in any sort of like parish inquest records or like the Minster official logs or anything like that documents the particular sort of watchman hearing a choir on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
And nothing certainly exactly as told in that narrative. Instead, versions of the ghostly choir and phantom chorister motif appear across multiple secondary sources, such as the ghost tours and blogs and things like that, where it's treated more as a local legend rather than any sort of documented fact.
Yeah.
The plausible history and origin around it is that the Minster's documented fires and losses around the choir stalls and the organ being destroyed in 1829 give a historical kernel that easily inspires ghost talk about lost choir boys and girls, or music heard in the emptiness sort of thing. Oral tradition and ghost talk culture in York then sort of amplify and reshuffle those images into sort of specific haunting vignettes,
Yeah.
such as like a midnight choir that returns on Christmas Eve.
It could be when you think about the theories of what ghosts are, or hauntings that have been put across. One of those is this sort of idea of transference and energy just lingering. It could be on a rock. It could be, wherever. It doesn't always have to be something bad's happened. Undoubtedly, a cathedral has had a choir through the years, so it might be some echo of energy or something like that.
Yeah.
Much more likely, it is just essentially a folktale that, as you said, has been passed along. But yeah, it came from somewhere.
Yeah. Well,
initially,
I think it's kind of been built on one which I did find and is somewhat easy to find. Is they do actually reference some online forums, blogs, Facebook even, do reference a phantom choir boy or a spectral chorister around the Minster and College Street. But this is recorded as a story of its own where a delicate choir boy had fallen gravely ill and died. But of course, this choir boy has no name and apparently it's been lost to time, so there's no sort of specifics around it or anything. But that is like a fairly well known story that there's this sort of phantom choir boy around the sort of College Street area in York. But these are sort of typical places where the specific choir singing anecdote appears in modern retellings quite often. But I think it's likely that stories such as this will always likely gain traction due to sources such as History of York's right up on the 1829 and 1840 fire, where it describes the damage to those particular areas. I think it's quite easy to sort of build upon, weirdly and rather sadly, sort of build on this tragedy that these choristers all died.
Yeah.
And then therefore they return. So yeah, it's a cool story though.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's got that Christmas atmosphere, winter atmosphere.
You can sort of picture it, can't you? That on Christmas Eve that someone would hear choir, a choir singing,
and especially in that area of York, it's an area I know reasonably well. And College Street around the Minster is just very active area for hauntings and reporting of hauntings. Always one of the almost sweet stories is a house that is at the top of College Street that looks at the Minster. There's a small window, and the story goes that the family lived there during the plague years and ended up getting, sort of sealed in, quarantined, and they had a little girl who was fine. I think she died of starvation. She didn't. The story goes she didn't have the plague. She was somehow immune to it, despite her family having it. She didn't come down with it, but she would spend the time looking out of the window, crying, facing the church. So quite a sad story, but the sweet element of it is, I mean, somebody lives in the house now, so you can't look too closely. But if you look in the window, there's a little statue of a girl facing the a little sort of ornament, not a statue, a little ornament of a little girl facing out of the window where she would have apparently looked out, which I always found quite a sweet way of keeping that memory alive. But people have reported seeing her ghost looking out of the window, so that's around the very, very same area. So yeah, quite an active. I mean, York in general, obviously, is thought to be one of the most haunted places in certainly in Britain. but I think that area specifically there's a lot of stories around there, so you can well imagine it's old fashioned. It looks very Victorian around there, so you could well imagine walking along on a snowy winter's evening, hearing a choir.
A watchman there with his lantern in his hand, having a listen and hearing that. Yeah, you definitely. It's a cool story. I liked it. So, our next story, The Christmas Night Stranger, the Maddie Louise. Picture it. A quiet Welsh village. Snow falling softly, lanterns low, and then a knock at the door. But instead of a neighbour or a caroller, something far stranger stands at the threshold. Draped in a white cloth, crowned with the skull of a horse, and staring with hollow, sparkling eyes, and it just wants one thing: to come inside. In a quiet Welsh village on a snowy December night, a family heard a knock on their door. When they opened it, they found not a person, but a towering figure draped in white cloth and topped with a horse's skull decorated with ribbons and glassy, shining eyes. It was the Maddie Louise, the grey mare. According to tradition, the creature demanded entrance, challenging the occupants to a battle of wit and rhyme called Punko? If the family failed to win the verbal duel, the Maddie Louise would step inside, clack its skeletal jaws, and bring with it a night of chaotic laughter, drink, and mischief.
This is the prize for losing.
Yeah.
Come on in!
yeah, but I think it's more about the fact that it is what it is. Can you imagine?
But a night of merriment.
Yeah, but if this towering thing with a horse's skull came in and started drinking all your beverages and laughing maniacally and...
Yeah, but the people were joining in.
Lee...
It promises a night of mirth and drinking.
But it's like fucking really tall with a skull of a horse for a head.
Yeah, granted, that's a bit odd.
Yeah, well, that's it. You won't start fucking sharing your Bell's whiskey with him, would you?
Oh, no, I quite like him. I'd never give him bells.
Honestly.
Carry on with the story.
Ruining it. Though frightening in appearance, the Marie Louise was not malevolent. It was a harbinger of luck, fertility, and winter's strange magic. A reminder that in the darkest nights of the year, the line between the living and the other world becomes very thin. Whatever you believe, mischief maker, omen bearer, or simply an echo of ancient winter rites, the Marie Louise still walks the hills of Wales today. Did I say Wales or Wales?
Wales, I think. What do you think you said?
I felt like I said Wales. Of Wales.
If you say it quick, nobody could tell.
Either way, it still walks the hills of Wales today, rattling its bones for anyone brave enough to answer the knock, because on Christmas night, not every visitor comes from this world. So, what is the Maddie Louise? It is a documented Welsh folk tradition dating back to at least the 1800s, and likely far earlier. To be fair, the history of this tradition could take a good chunk of an episode on its own, because there's actually quite a lot to it, and what I can tell, it's something that they still kind of practice now. So, but I'll go and I'll sort of make this somewhat brief. The Maddie Louise is a traditional Welsh wassailing custom, as just mentioned, was first recorded around 1800, but it's likely to have been observed much earlier than this, and was practiced primarily in South Wales. At its centre is a haunting figure, a real horse's skull mounted on a pole, draped in a white sheet and carried by a hidden participant, so they'd be inside. This skeletal hobby horse, accompanied by a group of men, would roam from house to house during the Christmas and New Year period. So, traditional accounts describe the group singing at the doors of local homes, demanding entry. the householders were expected to respond with their own improvised verses, refusing the Mary Louise. So this back and forth musical battle could continue for some time, and if the home eventually yielded, the Mary Louise and its entourage entered, receiving food and drink, and often causing playful chaos inside.
So essentially, it's a sing-off with
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
Right.
So the origin of the Mary Louise remains debated. Some folklorists believed it meant Holy Mary, linking the custom symbolically to the Virgin Mary. Others argued it originally meant grey mare, which better matches the ghostly equine image.
And I'm not sure the Virgin Mary would be demanding entrance via song.
No.
And then if you lost to the Virgin Mary at a sing-off, she would then come in and have a party. Don't really fit, does it?
You don't know.
I'd go with the grey mare.
You don't know her like I do. She was a mad bitch.
Blasphemer!
Others argued it meant grey mare, which better matches the ghostly equine image. Earlier scholars speculated the tradition might stem from pre-Christian ritual, but modern research finds little evidence of such ancient roots. Instead, many now believe the Mary Louise grew from the 16th to 17th century popularity of hobby horse entertainments among Britain's social elites, which later spread and took on regional forms. So by the 20th century, the Mary Louise had begun to decline for various reasons. I dare say World War One and Two probably had something to do with it.
Put a dampener on the merriment.
It will do. Yeah, trying to do the Mary Louise and the fucking air raid sound goes off. There's a bit of a pisser in it.
It is.
But the mid and to late century saw a revival, with some communities re-embracing the eerie spectacle. The Mary Louise has since inspired countless works of art, including paintings by Clive Hicks Jenkins and poetry by Vernon Watkins, solidifying its place as one of Britain's most striking winter traditions. So it is a bit weird. Have you seen pictures of it?
No, but I'd be interested to, because I've got an image in my head of what this thing looks like.
It's certainly creepy.
I like it. I like the idea.
Yeah.
I'm glad it's been revived, because...
Look at that.
Yeah, that's essentially what I imagined.
Yeah. You wouldn't be happy with just letting that in. Causing unbridled chaos.
No, it'd be odd. One of the odder nights I'd had, I would think.
Without the use of drugs. I mean, if that was like a spectral figure as well, though, like imagine that wasn't just someone underneath that.
I mean, again, it's the whole thing, isn't it? If you were just spending your time in Wales for Christmas and you'd never come across this, and then it knocks on your door, even if it was somebody stood,
can you
clearly
imagine?
holding it underneath like a hobby horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, not pleasant, that picture.
No.
It's the top hat.
Yeah. Just to clarify, the horse isn't wearing the top hat. The picture we're looking at is an old sort of Victorian gentleman with an absolutely fantastic moustache.
A set of moustaches, if you will.
Yeah, most definitely. And he has like a sort of like the long coat on, but he's got an excellent top hat. And if this was stood on your door, yeah, you'd probably cry.
Yeah, with no familiarity with it, I think it'd be pretty creepy. It's an interesting story though, because it is undoubtedly, I'm being light-hearted, but it's a scary premise.
Yeah.
But also it's funny and strange that they take pains to say that this isn't anything malevolent. It's quite a nice tradition in a sense.
Yeah.
And one that's been revived, which I think is great. And I think it shows people are going back to these sort of roots, and people really do enjoy this sort of thing. And I'm one of them. I think it's great, these weird traditions.
I agree.
Like I said about the Icelandic Yule lads, some of them are a bit creepy, but it's a tradition we take her to following at home. Alice will, on one night, she will leave a shoe out because that Yule lad will leave a little gift. And so we follow that as well, and it's really nice, and I like it.
That's cool. I think it's interesting that well, where did this come from? The fact that we don't really know, I really like that. You know, like who came up with it and why. But the fact that it could be, I mean, we obviously are told that it's nothing supernatural or paranormal, but it's certainly connected with that in some way, shape, or form. But then why? And I think that's interesting. You know, where did it come from? Yeah.
Again, probably these old stories that people have told, while sitting around a fire somewhere in the wintertime, and then probably somebody came up with the idea of, oh, we'll do that and not scare the neighbours, but we'll go in and have a free party.
Yeah.
So let's get a few sticks together, slap a horse's skull on top, and get knocking on some doors.
I mean, a horse
is it's strange.
The horse's skull is a terrifying image.
Yeah.
I mean, horses are beautiful, but their skulls are awful, aren't they?
Yeah, they're beautiful when they're alive with associated flesh
and pelts. But they have a horrible skull. I'm sorry, horses.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, my equine friends.
Never thought of it before, but yeah, they do, rather.
Yeah, it's a horrible image. Yeah, I'm going to get that off my screen because I
Yeah.
don't like it. Yeah, I'm a bit sick of that now.
On to the next story.
Yep, very good. So, here's one for you, Lee.
Here's one
for you. The Yule Cat, Iceland's Christmas predator.
Already seen it, mate.
Already seen it. Completed it, mate. In the darkest nights before Christmas, when snow swallowed the world and winter seemed endless, Icelandic families warned their children of something prowling just beyond the edge of lamplight. A creature with glowing eyes. A creature with hunger in its bones. A creature that came not for the wicked, but for the unprepared. On the snow-covered nights leading up to Christmas, children in rural Iceland once huddled close to their families, listening to warnings about a creature with eyes like burning coals and fur as dark as the midwinter sky. The Yule Cat. Yolakatori. I've not been practicing that.
Very nice, Brett. I'm impressed.
I haven't practiced for a month. It prowled the wilds during the darkest nights of winter, sniffing out anyone who had not received new clothes for Christmas, a sign in old Icelandic tradition that they hadn't worked hard enough during the year. If the Yule Cat found you with no new garment, it would stalk you, then pounce and devour you whole. Farmers would tell their children to finish their winter chores or risk becoming the Yule Cat's festive feast. Some families even left scraps of wool or cloth outside as an offering, hoping the cat would pass their home without incident. Whether a tale to frighten lazy workers or a genuine monster wandering the frozen hills, the Yule Cat remains a creature of winter legend. So when winter comes and the nights grow long, you might want to make sure you've got something new to wear. I think the most unsettling thing about that story is that I am pretty sure I've had some wardrobes called Yolakatorins from IKEA.
Ah, how unusual.
I might be wrong.
It's weird to... Oh, no, it fits, doesn't it? I was going to say it's weird to call a wardrobe after a evil Christmas cat, but it's not, because it wants you to have a new suit of clothes. Yeah.
Maybe. I'll have to ask Charlotte.
That's really interesting. That's quite a cool little...
If I'm remembering that right, and that's true, then IKEA and their marketing team...
That's really clever. I like that.
Yeah.
Another nice thing is in Reykjavik they construct a massive Yule Cat, which I've seen.
They do.
And again, this is people going back to their traditions, and it's great, absolutely great. I know this isn't a travel podcast, but on my first visit to Iceland.
On my first visit to Iceland.
Stayed in a very elegant...
I've been several times. I'm something of a local there now.
They call me the something Icelandic.
The Icelandic visitor.
On my first visit there, on the plane on the way there was a sort of information booklet about Iceland and its traditions and some phrases, Icelandic phrases. And in it, I can't remember the exact percentage, but there was a high percentage of Icelandic people believe in trolls and, goblins and all of these mythical beings.
Mm.
And I thought, how weird that adults would believe in that. And then we were really sort of felt lucky because our hotel was close-ish to Reykjavik, but it was essentially in the middle of nowhere. And it was snowing constantly while we were there. And it's the only place I've ever been that I would actually describe as magical.
Really?
And after spending just a couple of days there, I was like, I can really see why people believe all of this stuff. Like, our window looked out basically just across snowy fields with mountains in the distance. And you could well believe that there was anything roaming in there, whether that's trolls or Yule cats or whatever it is. And, of course, the old Icelandic people didn't have fancy hotels to be staying in. It would have been round the fire, telling stories, shadows dancing on the walls. And these things become so believable, if not true.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a strange place, and I'm not surprised such myths come from it.
Yeah. No, I can imagine that actually. I mean, you definitely do sort of associate Iceland as a place where, well, a lot of those sort of folklore type creatures come from there, don't they?
Yeah.
Like little stone golems and things.
Oh
like
yeah,
that,
and it's such in winter it's a really inhospitable place. Again, when we went on a tour around some of the famous geysers and lagoons in Iceland. Not that sort of geyser.
That was going to be a lot of old men.
When we went on these tours, you just the odd house sort of dotted around, they're properly in the middle of nowhere, and it's pretty much almost the entire population of Iceland is concentrated in Reykjavik, in the city. There's nobody lives around the other outskirts, really. Certainly not a large population. And in the middle, I don't think there's really anybody. It's that harsh condition. So, you've got all the snow, the freezing cold, yet you've got volcanoes, you've got hot springs everywhere. It is a very mythical place. It is.
Imagine living in a part of the world where the world just hates you, that it gives you the harshest conditions to live in.
Yeah, but it's
an
amazingly beautiful
place. Yeah, exactly. That's the trade-off, isn't it? It's like Australia, isn't it? I mean, Australia is just,
full of everything that wants to kill you.
Yeah, that's it. But it's beautiful.
Of course, I've been to Australia to carry on with it.
So anyway,
move on.
Yeah, the earliest confirmed mention of the Yule cat. God, why are you like this? Why are you like this?
It's very well travelled and cultured.
All right. Start you another podcast, shall we? Lee's travel journal. You'd like that, wouldn't you?
Around the world with Phileas Wise.
You'd love that. Jesus. Coming in 2026. So, the earliest confirmed mention of the Yule cat appears in Jon Arnensson's 1862 Icelandic folklore collection, where he describes a vicious creature that devours anyone who fails to receive new clothes for Christmas, or even steals their Christmas food. Jon didn't cite a source, leaving the story's origin open to debate. Two main theories attempt to explain where the legend came from. Folklorist Jarni Bjornsson believed Jon invented the creature, inspired by an Icelandic expression he quoted to dress the cat. With no earlier written references, Jarni argued the phrase may have sparked the myth. Why do they have these names? Archaeologist Gudmundur Olafsson disagreed noting that written folklore was often scarce in Icelandic history, and suggesting that the Yule Cat may instead belong to a broader European tradition of monstrous figures accompanying St. Nicholas. So, historically, the Yule Cat served a practical purpose. It frightened farm workers into completing the annual wool processing before Christmas. Those who helped were rewarded with new clothes and protection from the beast, while those who shirked their chores risked becoming its prey. So, the Yule Cat became firmly rooted in Icelandic Christmas lore in 1932, when poet Jóhannes Jökullum published Jólen koma, which is Christmas is coming. His poem Jólakatorin depicted the cat as a man-eating monster, and it soon became entwined with other Icelandic Christmas figures, eventually considered the pet of Gryla and the Yule lads, as you mentioned.
The final one, I believe, of the season.
Yeah. I think that should be our name for this episode. The Yule lads.
The Yule lads.
With
The Yule geezers.
well, I like the Yule lads because you could spell it with a Z at the end.
Oh, yeah.
Yule lads.
Yeah, they don't do that in Iceland.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah. Or we'll just be Christmas geezers
traditional
instead. Then. By the mid-20th century, songs, children's tales, and evolving folklore expanded the cat's role, even depicting the smallest Yule lad, Stufa, as the only one able to control it. In modern times, the Yule Cat has grown into an international icon. A 2008 English language article helped propel the legend beyond Iceland, and as you mentioned, Lee, in 2018, Iceland's capital city, Reykjavik, erected a massive 5-metre iron Yule Cat sculpture to welcome the Christmas period, which has since become a tradition in Iceland. And in 2023, an Icelandic film inspired by the creature, I don't even think I can pronounce that, and I think it's something like Björkanist Vjör.
Let me see the word. I've been to Iceland twice, you know.
Oh yeah, it starts there and here. Björkanist.
Yeah, quite right, bro. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, yeah. Good job that you checked for me, Lee. It's good to know that I'm getting it right. the Icelandic linguist over here. So I think it's something like Björkanist Vjör. If anyone, it's never going to fucking happen, let's be honest. But if anyone here listening to this is from Iceland or knows Icelandic,
I'd be very impressed.
Be very impressed. But also, let me know how much I've butchered all of this.
Yeah, they're probably unsubscribed now.
Probably. The English translation of this was Krampus, but puss spelt with 2 S's, as in pussycat.
Ah, very nice. Yeah, very interesting.
This, of course, brought the beast to the screen, and the rest, as they say, is history. There we go. That is Jólakatorin.
Very good.
I quite liked the Yule Cat. A nice little brief Christmas story, which is still told to this day.
Yeah. Again, it's weird when you I don't know if you've seen any of the old like printed German and Scandinavian Christmas cards. Will often have like children actually being punished by Santa or these bloody creatures that come along with him. And of course, Santa's an anagram of Satan. It's all very tied to the occult, I suppose.
Why is everyone like at Christmas a dick? I don't understand it. Yeah, look at him.
And of course, as well with Santa, some people call him Saint Nick.
Yeah.
Some people call the devil Old Nick.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of links.
Yeah, that's true. Look at some of these pictures, man. I mean, obviously it's fictional, but and then of course we just
who knows what's roaming the mountains of Iceland?
Quite right. I mean, when it's inhospitable to man, and you can't get there, who knows what's there in its place?
Indeed.
But yeah, I like the idea of that one just staring into the house. That one.
Next one.
Yeah, that's a cool one, isn't it? Nice. So, anywho, that is the Yule Cat. The next And final story. The Christmas Bride of Boughton. Christmas is supposed to be a time of joy, of gathering, of coming home. But for some spirits, Christmas is the one night they cannot rest. In an old village in Northamptonshire, there stands a churchyard buried under centuries of snow and sorrow, and every year, as the clock slips towards midnight on Christmas Eve, locals say the veil grows thin here. They warn travellers not to linger near the gate, and never to look too long at the figure who wanders among the gravestones, in a gown as white as winter itself. Because not every Christmas story ends with warmth. Some begin and end in tragedy. Tonight we tell the tale of the Christmas Bride of Boughton and the vow she has never stopped keeping. It was Christmas Eve in a small English village. Fresh snow drifted across the churchyard, and the neighbouring houses glowed with warm hearth lights and wreaths hung on doors. Inside the old stone walls of the church, the last carol faded. Families had locked up for the night. The bells had rung, and nothing stirred but a distant owl and the occasional rustle of wind through gravestones. At midnight, a figure appeared at the gate. A young woman, dressed in a wedding gown, white as the snow, her hair loose and windswept, eyes empty, her lips parted in a silent cry. She didn't knock, she didn't call, she simply stood under the old street lamp, her dress glowing pallid in the moonlight. Locals say she walks the churchyard every Christmas Eve, a bride who married on Christmas Day many years ago, whose husband died hours after their pact to one another. The bride, so devastated by her loss, took her own life 1 month later by her husband's grave. They say they hear soft footsteps echo on frost-hard earth and see shadows flicker across the headstones. A cold breeze brushes your cheeks, though the night air stands still. And for anyone who sees her alone beside the gravestones, a chill settles and whispers of a warning. Never follow her. And so the churchyard falls silent once more, the snow settling over the place where a promise was broken and where a spirit still keeps her lonely vigil. Some say the apparition is nothing more than a village folklore, a tale shaped by tragedy and retold over generations. But every few years, another witness steps forward. Another late-night traveller describes the same woman in white drifting between the stones. Another family visiting for Christmas swears they heard soft footsteps behind them, or felt the icy brush of a veil pass near their cheek. Perhaps the Bride of Boughton lingers because she never found peace, or perhaps she's searching for someone to take her place. So if you ever find yourself walking past an old churchyard on Christmas Eve, listen carefully, watch the shadows, and if you hear soft sobbing carried on the winter wind, don't look back. Some spirits return for love. Others return because they cannot leave. And she returns every Christmas. So, this is a good one. Hence why I left it to last. So, what do we know about this story? Well, what do we know to be unequivocal fact and fiction? Well, according to the legend and as the story says, many years ago a couple were married at the church on Christmas Day. The groom died only hours after the service. The bride, devastated, returned to the church a month later and took her own life beside her husband's grave. So,
those are established facts.
So, we're going to get to the bottom of this, right? So, I'm just going to bullet it and then we're going to work it down. So, since then, according to folk sources and oral tradition, villagers claim to see a female apparition, often described as red-haired, in wedding or burial-like white or pale clothes, wandering the graveyard on Christmas Eve or at midnight. The site often referred to the story is in fact real. It's the St. John the Baptist Church, Boughton Green in Northamptonshire. The site has a local reputation for being haunted. Multiple sources list it among Northamptonshire's most haunted places, describing frequent unsolved ghost stories, spectral sightings, and a variety of apparitions, one of which includes a highwayman who haunts the same graveyard and area. So there are stories attached to the legend. One says a man named William Parker passed the ruined graveyard on Christmas Eve, saw this woman, the ghost of the woman, and apparently spoke to her and accepted a kiss, and died exactly 1 month later. Interestingly, the parish register verifies this death of this person, this William Parker, but whether it is connected to a sighting and interaction or whether the story was concocted and added to embellish Mr. Parker's death is unknown at this point. So, here's what we cannot verify. There is no publicly available parish register or death record I found that confirms a groom died hours after a Christmas Day wedding at St. John's, nor any record of a bride's suicide at the time and place, a month later. Neither modern local history websites nor archival transcripts produce dated verifiable evidence for these events, unless, again, there's a local archive in that area or in that county or whatever that would be able to further verify it, but I certainly wasn't able to find anything. The earliest written record of this particular ghost story, as far as I can trace, seems to come from the 19th or very early 20th century, and sort of like various folklore collecting sources or modern retellings and things like that. So many versions of the legend vary significantly. Sometimes the ghost appears to be male, sometimes female. Sometimes a kiss, death, curse is mentioned, just as mentioned about William Parker, and other times that's just completely absent. Most often is the case, to be fair. The kind of variation suggests that the story has evolved through oral transmission rather than stemming from a single documented event. As is common in folklore, the story likely accumulated layers of embellishment, mixing local events, popular ghost motifs, and moral warnings, such as avoiding graveyards at night. And of course, this makes it difficult to sort of separate historical fact from narrative invention. That being said, the haunted site is a real place. The legendary events, such as weddings and the death and the taking of their own life, they remain unconfirmed but plausible in a rural community like that. And the ghost sightings recurring on Christmas Eve, the links to a red-haired bride, sudden chills, reports of a spectral kiss or presence, they are part of documented folklore and local reports, although they are just unverifiable by modern standards. Whatever the truth may be, the Christmas Bride of Boughton remains one of England's most mournful season hauntings, a reminder that love, grief, and legend often intertwine in the quiet corners of old churchyards and rural communities. So, that's one of those again where does it all marry up? What's fact, what's fiction? Where did it start? Like Kat said in our episode about the black-eyed children, these things often are anchored in some sort of truth, and it does make you wonder if maybe someone indeed was married on or around Christmas and did die tragically.
And at any time around Christmas, you do see if something bad, tragic happens, people will say things like, it's always this time of year, isn't it? And of course it's not. It's just, it makes it more memorable.
Yeah.
Especially if it's Christmas Day or something like that, anything bad happens, you'll remember that for the rest of your life. Even if it's fairly minor, you'll probably remember that for the rest of your life.
Well, we've got our own
we have
history with something like that,
and you still think about it every year. It was a long time ago. And every single time on that date, I'm not going to say it, but every single time on that day I think about it.
Yeah, 100%.
And it is because it's that time of year.
Because you always have that sort of that feeling of like, why did it have to be now?
You do.
Why did it have to be at this time
You
of year?
do, and
No time is a good time, but why now?
yeah, and if it involves somebody dying, you almost think, oh well, what a shame they didn't get. If it's somebody terminally ill or something like that, you think what a shame they didn't get that last Christmas and
Yeah,
die on a boring day in January.
yeah.
And having got the last Christmas out of the way. So it may well have roots in something like that, but based on some sort of truth. But then I think in general, second only to Halloween, Christmas is a very spooky feeling time of the year.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're absolutely right, and that is what we're going to touch on now. Is why is that? Why is Christmas often associated with ghosts, etc., and why do we enjoy ghost stories at Christmas? And when and how did this tradition come to be? So, Christmas and the winter period are often related to ghosts and spirits due to ancient pagan winter solstice traditions, which viewed the longest nights of the year as a time when the veil between the living and the dead was thin, a concept that was then carried into Christmas celebrations. So, the ancient pagan festival of Yule is possibly some of the earliest links to Christmas as we know it today, marking the shortest day of the year and celebrating the eventual return of the sun. Celebrations would be accompanied by traditions such as the giving of gifts, feasts, and decorating with greenery. So, although Christmas doesn't necessarily have the links to the paranormal and supernatural such as other dates on the calendar, Halloween being the most obvious, it has become a tradition to share stories of ghosts and spirits around Christmas due to some of these ancient practices. One particular story pagans believed and enjoyed telling during this dark time of the year, huddled around a fire, was the tale of the Wild Hunt, which was believed to be a large, ghostly, and spectral procession in the skies of Norse gods. So these would be led by Odin during the winter solstice. So gods such as Thor, not Chris Hemsworth, alongside his father Odin, which was not Anthony Hopkins, swept through the skies, scouring the landscape, looking for mortals who were unable to find sufficient cover from the cold, dark night. It was believed that once they were found, they'd be abducted, and the gods would deliver them to the underworld where their fate was sealed. Imagine being a god and still being a dick. I mean,
a lot of these things are. I feel sorry for these people. So you weren't lucky enough to be given some new clothes for Christmas, so you're devoured by a cat.
Yeah, that's it. And it's cold and it's dark. You're not inside, dead anyway.
Yeah, dead.
Because I'm taking you to fucking hell.
It's strange, this idea of as well that again it will be very sort of Scandinavian Norse in origin. But there's a tale that if you see the Northern Lights, the Aurora Borealis, you shouldn't sing or whistle at them, or
Really?
the lights will take you. Yeah.
Did you do it?
No, I didn't dare.
Brilliant. Oh, you superstitious fool. So, website History Today's article described the Wild Hunt as such, quote, accompanied by Odin's ravens, the menacing throng sweep through forest and air in whole companies with a horrible din, all in search of mortals who, having failed to find a hiding place from the celestial hunting party, are abducted as prey and taken to the underworld. The arrival of the Wild Hunt was thought to herald catastrophes such as war, plague, or famine, and presaged the death of anyone who witnessed it. End quote.
Oh, so even if you didn't get taken, you were dead anyway, just if you saw it.
Yeah. Honestly, it's a set of arseholes. Stories such as Beowulf are also believed to be one of the tales told during these times. The poem of Beowulf potentially dates back as far as the 8th century.
Oh, wow.
It tells the tales of Beowulf, a Scandinavian prince's heroic battles against monsters, most notable that of Grendel, who is described as a spirit, a death shadow, or a shifting fog, which of course lends itself to the supernatural and paranormal influences over these times. It was the belief and recounting of such tales at these, during these long, dark winters, days and nights, which birthed the earliest merging of the festive and the supernatural. Rather obviously, really, this association was only further cemented by the Victoria era of storytelling. Of course, it goes without saying that the most notable being Charles Dickens' 1843 story, A Christmas Carol, and I won't offend anyone's intelligence in explaining the plot, but the story used ghosts to deliver a poignant message and blended the festive with the spectral. This telling of ghost stories around a hearth on Christmas Eve was an evolution of these far older pagan traditions, and the demand for books similar to A Christmas Carol grew as people moved into the city, and many authors looked to capitalise on this during the Christmas season after the release and the popularity of the book. But as we shift into modern times, numerous theories have emerged as to why the tradition of telling ghost stories at Christmas has persisted. Psychologists and scholars have theorised that for many people, Christmas can evoke a sense of grief for lost loved ones, making it a natural time to think about the departed. This suggests that the telling of ghost stories, particular horror stories, provides a way to process difficult emotions like death and loss during a time of the year that can be quite emotionally charged. Whatever the case, today the tradition of spooky ghost stories shared and told while huddled around a fire continues to blend the historical, the emotional, and the festive sides of the holiday season.
That resonates with me because I read an article recently. It was a psychology article. I think I may have forwarded it to you, but it was about people who get comfort in horror.
Yeah. I think you did say that because that's us, isn't it?
Yeah. So people who get comfort from reading horror stories, ghost stories, watching horror movies. Probably some people might think you're a bit weird if you said that you get a feeling of comfort from those things. But I've always been like that, and to this day, if I feel a bit down, I'll tend to like nothing more to lay on the sofa and watch a horror movie. And it makes me feel better almost all the time.
It's nothing better than watching someone else's suffering.
Exactly. Maybe that is it.
Yeah. I feel shit. I want someone else to feel shit.
But I think it's because it's cozy. It's a cozy thing to do.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the comfort comes from.
Well, although slightly off topic and slightly unrelated, but I think I know what you're saying about that, because it's like when you're sad, you don't listen to happy music, you listen to sad music.
Yeah.
And I think it is that way of just being able to process difficult feelings. It's like you wanna feel it, don't you? You want to experience that badness. It's like that way of just being able to process it, deal with it, get it out of your system, really.
Yeah.
And I think telling ghost stories, or even if it just makes you feel that a little bit closer to someone that you might subconsciously be thinking about at Christmas. I always think about my granddad at Christmas. I'll probably go and see his, go to his grave on Christmas Eve, the day, maybe Boxing Day. Around that time, I'll go see him. I don't go very often, to be fair, and I probably should. But Christmas, oddly, I don't even go around his birthday. But Christmas is one of those times of year where I'm like, I need to go see him.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it is, isn't it? It's weird that Christmas does just remind you of these people that you loved and lost.
Yeah, and I guess it's because you would have, if they were alive, you would have spent Christmas with them.
You'd have seen them. That's it, isn't it?
I definitely think that's true. I can definitely get behind that theory that it's people thinking about lost loved ones and so on. And a big part of it for me is A Christmas Carol as well. It's one of the very few things that still makes me feel Christmassy as an adult. And it's a really cool blending of a bit of a ghost story, but with an actual subplot to it of it's also a fresh start, time for a fresh start.
Yeah.
And I just think that's why it resonates. That's why there's so many film versions of it
Yeah.
that have been made, so many interpretations of it.
Well, I think I'd go as far as saying it's probably the greatest story ever told.
I wouldn't be. I don't think I'd disagree.
I think it is the greatest story ever told, because I don't think there is a truer moral to a story than that, and it certainly is probably more relevant in today's world than it ever has been.
Yeah.
When you're talking about these people that have enough money to save the world and
Very
do
true.
nothing with it,
Very true.
you know, they could certainly do with a visit from three spirits to show them the error of their ways. And you know, I think there is never ever been a time where that story is where it carries more weight than it does now.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I've not thought of it like that. So it's a good point. Yeah, I think as well, getting back to that feeling of comfort with horror, I think that's why people like horror in general. Is it's certainly from my point of view, it's a real escape from everyday life. You know, if you get watching a movie or reading a book and you get so immersed into it, I think horror. Yeah, it's the same for any type of book or film that you enjoy as a way of escapism. But I think with horror, uniquely, because it adds that thrill of being scared but not being in danger.
Yeah.
And you know that deep down, you know, it's a bit like riding a roller coaster. I mean, generally you're not in danger, but there's the thrill of it and there's the fear of it, but really you're safe.
Yeah.
Nobody would feel comfort actually being, you know, tracked by some sadistic killer clown. No. But you watch it and you enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think Christmas just lends itself to that cozy time of year as well. Certainly all of these Scandinavian countries, Iceland, it's so bitterly cold that, you know, that's all people would have had time to, or the ability to do is tell stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it resonates. I don't know if you've got any sort of particular Christmas. I know we talk about when we stayed in the cottage and influenced this podcast, and that's a time of telling stories that I'll probably always remember.
Agreed, yeah.
But I've got one specifically from Christmas where my mum and dad had it would have been Boxing Day, and we had some family round, and ended up my uncle on my dad's side and auntie, a couple of others, mum and dad. I was only very young, and they were talking about Jack the Ripper and various theories about that. And, you know, because I had quite a vivid imagination, I started imagining this man in a top hat and a cape terrorising the streets. Thought he was going to be coming to Hull.
Of course you did.
And I got it into my head that my mum and dad's room had this weird, like, extra little room on it that was like a wardrobe.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of them, I don't even know what you call them like plastic slidey doors, concertina doors, I think.
It's got a sliding door.
No, it didn't slide, it like folded.
Sliding folding door.
Sliding folding door, that's exactly what it was. And I got into my head, although I don't know why that I then got comfort to stay in their bed with them, but I got into my head that some Jack the Ripper figure was in that bloody wardrobe. And of course it's ridiculous, and I spent the night terrified in the middle of my mum and dad, and I'll always remember that.
Yeah,
it's just this weird, bizarre memory. Like my mum and dad, if they listen to this, we're like, I'm not sure that even happened, but it did, and I remember it.
You remember it because you remember the fear.
Yeah.
But
it's a comforting memory to look back on. It's fun. It's nice.
Yeah.
But
and it will be comforting because you knew you were safe because you had mum and dad there.
Yeah.
And your dad probably would have slapped him with a tin of beans if someone came out. So you knew you would be all right. So
I'm not sure he could fight the ghostly.
No, he would have fucking tried though. To be fair, would he? Let's be honest. So I think. I think for me, like when I was like sort of doing the research into it, it is because it's it's dark at this time of year as well, though, isn't it? All you want to do is you want to be inside and you want to be cozy, and a good way of getting that excitement, I mean, watching a horror movie during the day in the middle of fucking summer when it's boiling and everything don't have the same impact it does when it's dark. So this is a perfect time of year for it when it's dark and it's cold, and because the ghost stories, the horror stories, and all those guys, they hit differently at this time of year, don't they?
Yeah.
So because you often associate visits from or interactions or experiences or whatever with ghosts and spirits, it's often associated with being cold, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like cold spots, the temperature drops when there's ghosts around and things like that. So I think when it's cold and it's dark, telling ghost stories, it is just comforting.
Yeah. Natural fit for the
it is. It's
surroundings,
perfect.
isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, you always become more. I watched this guy on YouTube. He was more an urban explorer, but he does a lot of paranormal investigations these days. But he'll go investigating places in the daylight, and his theory of it is that, well, if a place is haunted, it's haunted 24/7. Don't only come out at night.
Good point.
And I'm like, well, yeah, that is a really good point. But it's fucking scarier in the dark. And why wouldn't you want to do it in the dark?
Yeah.
Because kind of some of it you want to be scared.
Yeah. But then some places are even scary in the day, and that's when you know this is a really creepy place.
And that's it. And some of the activity that he has recorded in the day, the fact that it's happening in the day makes you feel uncomfortable. Because it's like, that's not just the dark and your senses being heightened as they always are when it's dark. And at this time of year, you're sort of more alert to it because it's always fucking dark. It's like the sun never comes up. But when it happens in the day, it's even creepier, isn't it? Because it's like, Christ, I'm not even safe in the day.
Yeah.
And
I find like, there's a certain industrial area near us, isn't there, that I've always been a bit creeped out by for no apparent reason.
A bit.
But even in the day, and I have done, so even in the day walking around there, particularly on a weekend, it's probably not so bad in the week when there's people working, but because it's such an industrial area, if you walk around there on a weekend, it's bloody eerie.
Yeah. Because half the businesses around
everything's
there are
closed.
Yeah.
The streets are very like maze-like, aren't they? And there's not many side streets or anything, so it's almost like you set off down one street and you've got to keep on going or go backwards. That's all you can do.
You don't get
filled with graffiti. It's just a weird place.
But there's no foot traffic through there either. It's just a place you drive through or you're driving to it.
Yeah.
It's not near any sort of residential area or anything. So just to walk through it is weird because chances are you won't walk past anybody else.
Yeah.
It's a weird place.
Yeah, and then you're not sure you want to walk past it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, when we went around a walk around there in the dark.
Yeah,
that night when we were talking about this podcast, actually.
Yeah.
It was horrible, wasn't it?
It was really, yeah.
It was horrible.
Yeah, it was. But again, one of them weird things. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And I quite like looking back on doing it.
Same.
But at the same time, while I was doing it, I was almost like, I can't wait to get back to the car. Like,
it's like,
doing that weird fast walk thing.
This is stupid. Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
But yeah, and again, I think that then comes back to exactly what we've been talking about. This is that people for hundreds of years have been sitting around fires in the dark, in the cold, telling ghost stories and scaring themselves. It's like, well, why would they do that? And it's like, well, why would we go walking around a desolate fucking industrial area where there's no traffic going through it, no pedestrians, and it's scary as hell? Why would we do that?
Yeah.
Well, because it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. And I'd do it again.
And I'd do it again and again and again. So, so I mean, that sort of draws this Christmas festive edition of Beyond the Veil. It brings it to an end. But as always, as we move into 2026, we've got some really exciting stuff coming up. If you've been keeping an eye on our Facebook page and our Instagram,
and our new Facebook group.
Yes, exactly. And our new Facebook group as well. So not just the Facebook page, we have a Facebook group where you can get involved in discussions. You can post anything you want in there about anything that's been happening to you and you want to talk about those. Be sure to join that if you haven't already. Again, it's just Beyond the Veil podcast. You can go check those out, and for Instagram, it's at Beyond the Veil, the podcast. And yeah, go check them out. You can message us on there directly if you want to. If you've got some stories of your own, we are still looking for stories, but we've got some really cool stuff coming up. I mean, by the time this episode's gone out, our episode with Mike will have been out for about a week or so, which was an amazing episode. We love talking to him. We're hoping to get him back on the show next year in 2026. We also have, well, if you've been checking out our Facebook, we haven't done it yet, but by the time this episode's out, we'll have interviewed him, but we'll have gone to Sheffield to the house where the Lady in the Bay Window was written, and we'll be interviewing William Seagrave in his house, and God knows if we'll capture anything.
He seems very active from reading the books, so I'm hopeful. And a first for Beyond the Veil, in that we'll be recording there at the place,
at a location,
of the subject of the books,
which would be great to be able to do some more of that. I think if we can get to places and record in there, because I am so excited to see if we actually experience anything while we're recording.
And absolutely.
The crazy thing is that by the time this episode's gone out, we'll know, but we're recording this at a time when we haven't done it yet, so we'll know at this point by the time this has gone out. But I'm so excited. When I spoke to William recently, just to sort of put on in the final details of how to get there, etc., he said that they've not had any activity since probably the start of November. So who knows, they might be due something.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that long ago, is it, when you're considering ghostly activity?
Just over a month ago at this point. But
in fact, it sounds like you're more likely to get ghostly activity than you are to see the Aurora Borealis, even in Iceland.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, but I'm kind of thinking that because it's been a while, he might be due some activity, and we might maybe get some while.
And again, we've always said, haven't we, that often these things seem to feed on attention.
Yes.
And that's exactly what we'll be doing in abundance. So we hopefully will get something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
I would just like to say as well, I'm really sort of still touched by this, but the fact that William took the time to write those books and then actually donates the proceeds to a cancer charity, I just think is absolutely incredible.
Incredible, yeah. I mean, that's it, because because of the success of the books as well. I mean, we'll be talking about this when we do interview William, and when the episode goes out, you'll hear all about this. But yeah, I mean, an incredible cause, and every single penny's gone towards it, and an incredible sum of money as well, which we'll talk about that. But yeah, what a guy, absolute legend, and really can't wait to meet him. So and I really hope that you all tune in to listen to it, because if you've not read the books, go pick them up and read them before the episode goes out. It'll really help put a lot of what we're going to talk about into a better perspective, into better context. Not to say you won't enjoy it either way, because we'll be talking about the books and about some of the activity anyway. But if you haven't read them, go read them. If not, you'll probably want to read them after the episode, because I cannot wait.
And even if you're not big into reading, they're really easy books to read.
Yes.
You get through them quickly. Really fascinating subject.
Mm-hmm. The chapters are only short, and each chapter is an event that someone has experienced.
And absolutely perfect for a winter's evening.
Yes, honestly, you couldn't ask for a better book to read at this time of year. Nice and snappy, nice and quick. And some of those stories really chilled me. So I really can't wait for that episode to go out. So please keep a lookout for it. And as always, we are looking for your stories, as just mentioned earlier. Just drop them as a direct message to us, or by email, and that's BTV, as in Beyond the Veil. So BTV podcast stories at gmail.com. You can email them through to us there. We've got a couple that we're sort of already got and we'd love some more so that we can put it into a larger episode and talk about those. So hopefully we'll be dropping an episode in 2026 with some listener stories. Yeah, so very, very exciting.
That's ultimately what we're going for, isn't it?
It is.
That's really, we want this podcast to belong to everybody and everybody who's interested in this sort of thing, which, as I've repeatedly said on the podcast, the more you talk to people, the more you realise almost everybody's interested in this sort of stuff, especially if they've got a story to tell.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So, yeah, although we've covered a few things recently, that is what we want the core of this podcast to be. We will always do episodes like this and episodes where we'll interview people, because we want to have a really good place for people who are interested in the paranormal, somewhere to go and listen. But yeah, we want your stories. We want your true, real experiences. So if you have one, drop it to us. And yeah, we can't wait to hear them. But in the meantime, I think that's it. Yeah?
Absolutely, yeah.
So if that is the case, then it's goodbye from Lee.
Goodbye. Beware the Yule cat, please. Get your new garments on.
Get your new garments on, or the Yulekatorian will be coming for you. And of course, it's goodbye from me. And as the night closes in and the last embers flicker, remember that Christmas was once the time for ghost stories, shared in the dark, whispered over the fire. Thank you for keeping that tradition alive with us tonight. From myself and Lee, from the bottom of our hearts, we want to thank you for joining us on the Beyond the Veil podcast since we began here a few months ago. And we hope you have a very Merry Christmas. We'll, of course, see you again in the new year in the cold, quiet corners beyond the veil.